today we're really wanting to make artificial intelligence real for everyone in an organization. And so I pulled in a really good friend of mine, Jack Bradham, who is a Power BI specialist. And so we were prepping for this, and he was like, "Hey, Brent, the reality is we don't want people to think that AI is kind of out of reach for them as somebody sitting anywhere in an organization." So his goal today is to really make sure that you feel comfortable using Power BI without any other special tools to really tap into the power of artificial intelligence. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Jack. He's going to start sharing his machine, and we hope you sit back and enjoy this content. Again, 30 minutes of usable AI for everyone in your business, powered by Power BI. So Jack, over to you, buddy. Make sure you come off mute.
Thanks, Brent. I will get us rolling here, man. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for everybody who's already joined. We'll get started really quickly because we don't have a whole lot of time. I titled the presentation Usable AI because I think we're there. And you may be asking yourself, okay, well, what does that even mean, usable AI? Well, look, I used to think that you had to have a propeller head hat and just really love numbers in order to get to this point where you could use artificial intelligence or advanced analytics, and that's not the case anymore. The question really is just how do you do it? Because it seems so complicated, and I think the truth is it's not really that complicated, at least not with Power BI. I think it's awesome. We have a lot to get through. We're going to talk about natural language processing and how different features in a particular model affect each other. I'll talk more about what that means and how you sort of just make it real really quickly. I only have a short amount of time, so I am going to dump the slides right now, and we are going to jump right into Power BI. So if you're not familiar with Power BI, I'm just going to go to powerbi.com. Okay. This is sort of our place where you get into Power BI. Power BI is technically an Office 365 product, and so it's a great addition to your Office stack and usage if you're on E5 or if you're purchasing your licenses just for Power BI. That's completely fine. You can sign up for free if you're just getting your feet wet. Again, most everything I'm going to show today you're going to be able to do for free, but we do hope that you'll get into collaborating and sharing, and that's really where Microsoft begins to charge for this product. So I am going to actually sign in to a different tenant today. I have a few tenants. You saw single sign-on kind of kicked me right into one particular instance of Power BI. But I'll just give you a little tour. Not even a 10-cent tour, 2-cent tour. This, of course, is me. Unfortunately, I don't have enough internet to share video today, but, just going across the top here, can you send some feedback? How do you get help? Downloads. We'll come back to this one in just a minute because this is where you can get things like our Power BI desktop tool. And then settings and whatnot. But most of the work we're going to do today is actually on the side here where we have the sidebar. So you see home, that's what you're looking at. If you want a real in-depth tour, click on this video right here, watch video. It'll give you a tour of the home page and how you sort of work with it. But in the sidebar, it's just how we help you organize things. So like the favorites, things you've been working with a lot, things you've been working on recently, apps. We're not going to talk about apps today. That's a cool way for you to distribute your work, like an app store. Things people have shared with you, but most of the work or things that you create are going to be collected into workspaces. And honestly, workspaces are just folders. They shouldn't scare you at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up workspaces. You can see I have a couple here already. I'm going to create one. If you're not new to Power BI, you'll notice I'm using the latest Workspaces experience. So I'm just going to create one here called Usable AI. That's our topic for today. All right. And we'll just leave it at that. I won't do any special stuff here. I'm just going to click save. So what that does is creates me a place to collect my reports and dashboards and so forth. And there's only a few things that you would put in a workspace: a dashboard, a report, Excel workbook. We'll talk about that in just 1 second. And then data sets and data flows. We're going to talk about all of those today. To get us kicked off, I'm going to click on Files. And Power BI is asking me if I want to go ahead and get some data. I'm going to say yes, get me some data. I told you Power BI is a Office 365 product, so I use OneDrive to just collect and contain all my files. So I'm going to click on OneDrive for Business, and what Power BI is going to do is go out there and look and see, what data I have available. And this works out really well. I'll just have an Excel spreadsheet there. It's about 20 megs. It's in my OneDrive for Business. Perfect. Click connect. So I'm going to click import that data. And so what Power BI is going to do is it's going to go out to the Excel document and drag that in. And for some of you who are a little less technical or who don't really want to understand what I'm talking about here, just earmuffs for a second, earmuffs. Power BI is going to drag that data in, put it in a columnar compressed in-memory data store, and make this an un-earmuff for you professionals who don't really want to understand the technical details. It's going to make it super duper fast to query that data. So it built me out a data set, and if I click on that data set, you'll start to see the first asset that we have here, our first artifact in our workspace. It's the data set. It did create me a dashboard. That dashboard is not particularly helpful for today. I'm going to delete that and just keep the data set. So what Power BI did was went ahead and built out a little data model for me, right, with sales and product, geo, date, etc. Now, if you looked at that workbook, it wouldn't be, or that Excel file that I used to import it, it wouldn't be complicated. It's just a few tables with some data in it. So Power BI is really good at going ahead and building that out with really any data at all. So what I can do, I could just start grabbing visuals, and that's what we have here is just a set of visualizations. I could add a line chart, and I could go and say, give me revenue, right, just by one click, and then give me date. So I would get a really cool little visual. So that's not particularly important though. We could look at that, but we're talking about how do you do AI here? So one of the first things that we're going to talk about with artificial intelligence is Power BI allowing you just to ask it questions of the data. So I'll click on ask questions and I'll say revenue, if I can type it out right, new revenue by date. Right, so we should get, if I'm typing right today, revenue by date, we are going to get the exact same visual. So Power BI can build these visuals just with you asking it questions. And so I really like to do these just to point out that, look, we've baked in the BI, the artificial intelligence for you. So here's another visual. I'm doing units by zip. So this is the number of units we've sold. And I'm going to say as map. Right? Let me spell that right. As map. So what Power BI is going to do is just automatically build out a map visualization across all of our cells. These natural language processed queries can get pretty complex. So if I do like count of products by category, by manufacturer, let's see, where'd my mouse go? Here we go. Let's get that back there. By manufacturer, right? And let me just do one of my favorite visuals here. I'm going to do a tree visual. I just love the colors, frankly. You can see now I not only have everything organized into what is my largest category of products, but who are my largest manufacturers in that product line. So that's pretty awesome. I love that. You can see how Power BI is sort of taking it to the next level. Now, I'm going to add some more data to this workspace. Before I do that, I'll just go ahead and save this report. Report 1 will be a perfectly good name. And you can see by doing that, I've just added a report asset. So we're doing everything in the browser right now. We don't have to do that. If I really liked this visual, which I do, I'm going to pin that visual. And that's where we really get into creating our dashboards. So I'm going to build out the dashboard super quick, right? Would be helpful if my fingers would cooperate today. So I'll do dashboard 1. Okay, and you can see just by going to dashboard 1, I'm starting to collect visuals, and that's what that's the difference between a dashboard and a report in Power BI. Reports collect visuals, and we sort of build everything out there in a report. However, when a dashboard is a place for us to collect the favorite ones that we're interested in. That we really want to provide out. So I'm going to add a little more data to this. I'm just going to say get data, and this time I'm going to go back and I'm going to choose a particular data model that I built in Power BI Desktop that has a little bit more data and relationships built out into it. I could do that in Excel. It would just have taken me a lot longer. So I'm going to go ahead and import this exact same file. Now I have this up in Power BI Desktop. Remember, if you're wanting to get Power BI Desktop, you can just download Power BI Desktop here. And I have Power BI Desktop here on my desktop. So you can just sort of visualize it and see how it's working. We'll come back to Power BI Desktop here. But the reason I wanted to sort of show you a little bit more filled out data set, and you can see I have it here, sales data, is another AI feature that I think is really pretty important to understand, and that is quick insights. So what if you didn't want to find insights in your data? You just wanted Power BI to do that for you. If you had a robust data set, and the reason I say robust is because the better the data model is, the better it's going to be. You can just click get quick insights, and what Power BI is going to do is just launch a set of algorithms, of many algorithms at your data to try to find some insights. And in that way, you don't really have to. So it's going to contextualize the data, run across it, and give you some ideas just right out of the box. So I'm going to click View Insights, and this is just a list of some of the things that it found. In this case, it's telling us the largest district in one particular state out of all the states. Here it tells me that my top competitors compared to my primary vendor, which is Van Arsdale, you can see how they're competing here against each other. Van Arsdale's still really large versus our top 5 competitors. That's pretty interesting. So I'm going to pin that insight itself to that dashboard that I created. The Power BI is going to ask me if I want to create a phone view. I can do that. Just remember, everything we're doing here is also available for viewing on your Android or iOS device. So, things are, as we go through these visualizations, we see quite a bit of stuff. Top competitors has a relatively steady percentage of previous year sales. So they're just saying, look, last year, across your sales, things didn't really change very much, and that's a great insight. I'm going to pin that one to the dashboard as well. So you can see I'm starting to just click pin. I'm starting to really build up a set of insights that I may find pretty interesting to share with people. Let me just close that out. However, it looks like my dashboard's kind of flaking out on me a little bit there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to jump over. So those insights will get added to your dashboard. We'll come back to that. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to Power BI Desktop, because some of these features and so forth that are available in the Power BI service are also available when you're building visualization. So I'm going to click plus here. I'm going to give myself a new page. And I really want to dive even more into some new AI features that I think will make your life a lot better. So I'm going to click on Ask a Question, and I'm going to do a relatively simplistic request here. So I'm going to do, let's see, I believe we have a year, right? So we'll do revenue by year as column chart. Okay, perfect. So really love that I can just ask a question. I don't really have to build it out. As you can see, things are looking pretty good. Revenue is up, and you know, we're cruising right along. One of the things that I could do is just right click on one of these data points and ask it to analyze that data. And specifically what it sees here contextually is that we have had increases year over year. So we can actually just say, okay, well, what is that increase, or why is that increase? So what Power BI is going to do is it's specifically going to analyze why there's a 7.91% increase in revenue between 2016 and 2017. Now, I don't have to do this solely in Power BI desktop. You could just as easily do this in the service. In this case, we're seeing a decrease in revenue, and you can see like this still works in the service just as well. I love this feature. I love it over here even more because it's a little easier to deal with. So it's going to go ahead and kind of try to explain to me how to use this analysis and what I'm looking at. I'm going to explain it to you. So as you can see here, what it's going to tell you is automatically that product 478 ID and 438 and 409 had the largest increase amongst the products. And that's explaining a lot of our increase. We can go down and there's other visuals. Let's just say this waterfall visual doesn't really work for us. We can switch over to a scatter plot. And again, you'll see how these products here, 409, let's see, which other ones, 438, that had a large increase, and 475, you know, big increases in revenue for 2017. Here's my favorite visual, however, that I think really makes the most sense. As you can see, here are a number of product IDs. This is where they started, and then this is where they ended for the year, which just kind of shows you where things are moving and how things are going. So these are visuals themselves, and you can make use of them immediately in your Power BI work. So if I just click plus here, that visual itself will get added to my report. Again, that works just as well inside Power BI Service as it does in Power BI Desktop. Just keep in mind, Power BI is a service and a product. So when we talk about the Power BI Service, we're talking about that SaaS web client that we have available. So just a few other insights I could add, you know, as many as I wanted. This one is going to tell me which particular product did better with product names. This one is going to look at different price points that I used. I actually like scatter for this one, so I'm going to click plus. And the cool thing here is it's also going to show you an explanation of what's going on. Okay, so that's pretty neat. I'm also going to sort of jump back over to the service for a minute and open up another report that I think is pretty interesting. So I want to show you some more AI features, how you can sort of get insight. So while everybody was sleeping last night, I sort of built out a customer feedback report. And so in this report, we have some data that is specifically from our customers. So I'm going to click on edit report here in the service, and you can see we have customer table here. And so we have company ID, and we have a rating of, you know, how they think our customer support is going. So let me just click on customer ID. So we should be getting a list here. Let me just close this off. Let me switch over to a table. I think, yeah, there you go. There's the problem. So we see companies are giving us different ratings. I'm not as interested in building a table in this case. Actually, what I want to do is use the key influencers visual, which is a new visual that helps us to analyze data really, really quickly to understand what particular metrics or values we have in our data are influencing others. So let's say I wanted to understand why we were getting bad ratings from customers or good ratings from customers. So I'm just going to drag rating over to the analyzed portion. And now I'm going to say, okay, well, what things do I think are influencing the rating to be low or high? So I'll click on low there. And I'm going to say support tickets stick out to me. And as I look at support tickets, I immediately pick out things like duration of support ticket, Was the support ticket escalated? Let's see, what other things do I have here? I have from the customer table, I have a role. Okay. I'm going to leave that one alone just because I have an actual role table. So I'm going to say role in the organization. Does that affect your opinion? What about your tenure as a customer? Let's pull that out from the customer table. What about your geography? Does it matter which country or region you're coming to? So you can see I'm just taking one particular value to analyze, and I'm adding variables that may or may not explain that value. So here's a cool feature. This is kind of small for us to read, so I'm just going to blow it up into focus mode. And as you can see, it's pretty clear what's going on here. As the duration of tickets goes up, you have a 29.5% times likelihood that you're going to get a low rating. So if you want to increase satisfaction or get better ratings in your customer service, you need to reduce the amount of time. Also, it's interestingly enough, if I choose one of these, it's going to give me a little more explanation, right? So it says as duration increases, the likelihood of a rating is going to a low rating is going to increase as well. So just as I explained the other one, here's an interesting one. I didn't believe this would occur, but the role in the organization of the customer is important. So what it's saying is if you're a consumer, if you're not an administrator or a publisher, what you're 2.5% times more likely to give a low rating. Yeah, that's pretty significant. So we need to pay very close attention to, I would say, some of the ones who are at the grassroots of the organization. These 2.5s and 1.4 times, etc., they just explain the likelihood compared to the other factors. And you can see a list of the other factors all segmented out. And you can see Power BI and the Key Influencer Visual, in this case, found 2 segments of customers. And so we can sort of dig into those about how the segments sort of match up to one another. But, in the interest of time, we'll just kind of keep rolling. The last thing I'll say is this visual is absolutely resultant as well to other factors. So let's say I took the company and I added company size, right? Let's add that to a slicer, actually, not to here. You can see I can choose like less than 50 or greater than 50,000, and the Key Influencers visual will rerun its analysis. That's pretty fantastic. So we're getting short on time. I'm actually gonna switch over here and do a little bit more stuff. So far we've sort of been operating at the front end over here in reports and dashboards, but sometimes it would be great to work in the data sources and reporting sources all the way through to the model. So I'm just going to show you a couple brief things that you can do that are really particularly cool in Power BI. So one thing I need to do is sign out of this tenant and sign into another one. So I'm just going to leave all that behind and go back to Power BI. And some of the stuff that I'm going to show you here is actually in our premium product, in Power BI Premium. However, don't worry, it's not something that's going to constrain you forever. Sorry, I'm clicking in the wrong place here. So Jack Brad at Power BI Champs. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to log in here. And I only have a few minutes to show this, but I'm really excited about it. While we're sort of browsing around this, I'm going to open up a whole different Power BI desktop. I'm going to close out the one that I had. There's so many features I would love to show you in this tool. I'll just save that out. I don't really need it for later. What I'm going to do, so we talk about in our data flow, or sorry, in our Power BI about data sets and data models. But another really popular tool and piece is a data flow. So a data flow is a little bit more like the data coming in, it hasn't, the data that you're receiving from the source. So we have a way of capturing just that data from the source versus, literally loading it up into a data model itself. So this has a couple real advantages, and you can build these out really, really easy. In fact, I'll just run through creating a data flow for you really quickly and explain why you want to do that. So I'm just going to click create and click create on the data flow. I'll click add new entities. We don't really have time to talk about these other types, but you can get entities from other places or existing entities, and you can even pull them out of an Azure Data Lake store. But I'm just going to click new entities. And while that sort of churns, I'm going to grab a particular thing here so that I can share my desktop too. Grab my notes really quickly. So here is a set of data that I want to use. Okay, so I'll minimize that, and I will go back to desktop number 1. Okay, so let's launch this. So what I'm going to do to build out this data flow is I'm just going to use a text file. This text file is actually out on the internet, and so I'm going to include it here. I don't need any special actions. Power BI as a service can connect directly to it. And what I'm actually loading up here is a list of customers and their comments in a particular survey. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to transform this table just by taking that data and saying use the first row as headers, which was great. That worked out really well. So now I'm going to take this data and add some insights to it. So I'm going to say, I want to run a cognitive services model on this. And what is a cognitive services model? So we've already built out a bunch of Azure machine learning models for you that you can take a look at and use. You don't have to be a genius to make these up. And they can do things like key phrase extraction. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say from this data of resource that I have, take the comments and let's just show only the required parameters and extract the key phrases. So what Power BI will do is it will go ahead and add a new column with the extracted key phrases for me. Now, because I don't have a ton of time, I'm going to just show you what that looks like. So Power BI is going to churn and add that particular column. When we're done, what it's going to end up looking like, let me just save and close that and switch over to this customer feedback one. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let that turn. I'm going to load this up in Power BI. Oh, here we go. It's catching up with me now. Let's just name it customer feedback. Right. Save that out. And I am going to just tell it to go ahead and run that data model now, refresh it out. So let's switch workspaces to see what you're going to get when that's done. So this data flow will pump out a set of data that has been enriched with cognitive services. So I asked it to pull out key phrases from their comments, and it did that. Now in Power BI Desktop, I can connect directly to that data flow. So I'll just click in Power BI Desktop, get data, and then I'll choose Power BI and I'll choose data flows and click connect. And what you'll see is that it's going to expose to me the data flows themselves. So now I can use those to build out my data models, etc. So I'm going to look at customer feedback again. This is one that I already baked out. I'll just click query and it should evaluate out just fine. So give me a preview Power BI. You can see all the data and you can see that I pulled out the specific key phrases. I also added a different model here, I believe, that you didn't see. Let's see if that's in a different one. Nope, that's okay. So we're going to load that up, and I'll show you, show you some stuff here. So last sort of thing for today, we're just going to look and see what that actually looks like when Power BI finally gets the data, how it can use that cognitive service enrichment to display it. So I'm going to add a visual. It's one of my favorites. From our Power BI visual marketplace, it's always one of the first ones here. So I'll just click add. That's the word cloud. So it's going to download that. I'll take the word cloud and I'm going to add all those words that I sort of got back from this data model. So it'll show me, and I'll just blow this up so everybody can see it. You know, the type of comments that we're getting people. So the word cloud is going to take all those key phrases that came out and show it. So that's one particular cognitive services key phrase extraction that that we did across a whole set of data. And you can, if I go back to the report, you could see exactly what our customers did just by adding another visual. Let's add an email address, and don't worry, these are all sort of faked out, so they're not real, but you can see their comments, right? And you can see exactly the most important words that came out of those cognitive or came out of those comments through cognitive services. And we can do a lot of things. We can do sentiment analysis. We can do image tagging where we look at a particular tag. We can do a lot of things. Unfortunately, I'm out of time today. Hopefully Brent's going to let me come back, do some automated machine learning where we'll build your models for you in Power BI so you don't have to learn how to build machine learning models on your own, but we'll have to save that one for another day. So Brent, I'm out of time. I'll hand it back over to you, pal.